What's up, everybody? So, hey, let's just have a quick talk about the CIA guys in Mexico and why you can't really believe anything that you hear. We all know that there's been stuff going on in Mexico for years. Going back to the Department of Homeland Security agent that was shot, to going back to Kiki Camarena, etc., etc., etc. And I'm just going to say that there are a number of reasons right off the top why I would be mistrusting of any of that, not having a high level of confidence in any of it. You've got stuff going back decades and you've never heard of CIA operatives. Oh, I almost forgot. I've got a fever, and the only cure is more cowbell. Hello, hello, hello to you, my special friends. So, hey, been going on and on and on today with Armapedia and everybody else that's out there already making crazy claims with all of their sources. Talking about my sources, my high level. I told him, I'm like, hey, Armapedia, I used to work for the SSP, the Secretaría de Seguridad Pública. And he doesn't know what function I was working in or whatever. He comes back at me and he tells me, I have high level sources. They always love to say that. My sources, my anonymous sources, I've been putting out videos for 10 years sources, but never have anybody speaking in an official capacity to prove what I say sources. Just trust me, bro. This type of stuff. And it goes on and on and on. Wash, rinse, and repeat forever. And so you tell them, if you got proof, prove it. But they never do. I had Valhalla VFT get all butthurt. He was cool as hell to me the first time I met him in person. I'm like, what's up? He's like, yeah, we're about the same size. Blah, blah, blah. I go on to his live feed when he's talking about American boots on the ground and proving what he said. He got all butthurt, called me a fucking random. Excuse me, I've been doing really good with not cussing. And called me an effing retard. I'm just quoting him. It's just crazy how much people get upset when they make a living off of YouTube and then you tell them to prove what they have to say. Same thing with Armapedia. Oh, my high-level sources, not discounting the fact that I actually worked there and did it. Luis Chaparro, same thing. There are tons of Mexican reporters in Mexico that live it every single day that work for an authentic, legitimate Mexican news agency, not someone that pretends to be a Mexican reporter living in the United States, or not someone that's selling tatas and a belly button ring from Canada, which is what they do. So let's get into why the CIA thing in Chihuahua is bullshit, okay? Because that's what you guys really want to hear. You want to hear why the CIA is total bullshit in Mexico. First of all, they've operated down there for tons and tons and tons of time, and you guys have never heard of a CIA operative, much less two that are dead and a third one injured or some other things. It's something as mundane as a drug lab. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, I'm not going to turn this. I'm going to bleep that out. Get out of here, man. CIA operatives aren't down there taking down clandestine drug labs or ones that are known about to where people are going out there in federal investigative uniforms. Not happening. They've got the Drug Enforcement Agency for that. They've got the ATF for that. They've got the FBI working with them. It's not the CIA. The CIA is not working in a law enforcement capacity anywhere within Mexico. not even in Guadalajara. And even though they do have offices in Monterrey and other things, which Armapedia was quick to point out, they're not out doing missions, and they're not out being run over or killed in car collisions anywhere in Mexico. Something else, and this is something that I want to touch on. People saying that their uniforms aren't quite correct. If they were in a car crash, as they claim, and they were all in the same thing, first of all, if you're working down there, everybody and their mother knows who you are from basic training going forward. You will have a very clear-cut, established background on other people that went through training with you, that are still there working, that can easily validate whether or not they've worked with you and for how long, period. Everybody does that right off the bat. So they would immediately recognize anyone that were outsiders that were dressed in uniforms. Not only that, when you go certain places, Mexico's got more checkpoints than you can shake a stick at. They've got transito checkpoints, which is just like low-level transit police or traffic police. They've got municipal people, cops that are out there doing stuff. They've got state-level ministry agents and state-level preventative police agents that are out there doing stuff. Each of these come with checkpoints. Federal-level ministerial police, federal-level preventative police, and now a lot of it's morphed into the Guardia Nacional, then having checkpoints. The military having checkpoints. Aduana having checkpoints, which is like their immigrations and borders and customs enforcement. The Marine having checkpoints, all of whom are operating and answering to different directive personnel that do not answer to the same cabinet at an executive federal level, okay? So you would have to have every single one of those groups bought in on your foreign presence in the Republic of Mexico, of which Claudia Sheinbaum, the president, already came out denouncing this. And when I was there working, it was clear that the prosecutors on a federal and state level both knew of my presence, as well as the Marines and the Army and everybody else that was around. So one or two or even three people operating in Mexico would raise heavy eyebrows among a lot of people, and a lot of people would know that they weren't there, even if they looked like they were Latino, because their accent would stand out right away. One of the initial things that I started calling out about Ed Calderon. You know, I've refused to try to monetize this channel or try to grow it by asking you guys, because there's so much stuff that goes on that it's really difficult for people to know who to trust or what to believe. And I'm not ever going to tell you what to think. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to point things out. When you're out on patrol, even when you're out doing undercover work, you always have multiple vehicles, because it is definitely the type of place where you're going to get into something. Even when we're out on patrol in marked vehicles, we go out in 2 or 3 vehicles at a time on a state or federal level. Always. And whether it's police or military, you're always out with multiple vehicles because things happen. So the idea that you're going to have 2 or 3 random CIA operatives running around Mexico taking out drug labs, is just absurd. Not going to happen. And then they probably have drone footage, and if they wanted to, they could easily have the competent Mexican authorities take that down. They don't need to be there. There's no reason for a CIA operative to risk blowing their cover with any mishaps. You know, you're talking about taking down a drug lab. You think the cartel might be concerned with that not happening because they're generating profit with it? Perhaps, perhaps not. Maybe they've got a bunch of them. But what if they do take issue with it And all of a sudden, you've got a major shootout. Now you've got dead Americans hanging around. Now you have to explain them. You have to explain to everybody in the Mexican government that's not happy with them being there, as clearly Scheinbaum's not. And you have to explain everything to the international community, unless that's what you wanted to happen. You wanted people to know that Americans were in Mexico doing stuff that Mexican people would not be happy with. All right? So there's that. So often I've been calling people out on their lack of sources, on their lack of proven sources. I'm not going to tell you to trust me, bro. I'm going to tell you to question everything you can, including everything I have to say. Mexicans operate with known checkpoints all over the place. So even if someone did have the blessing of one agency, they'd have to have the blessing of the other agencies, which they might run into, that aren't in the know on what they're doing. And even as an agent crossing states in Mexico or running around, especially in troublesome states like Coahuila, like Tamaulipas, like Chiapas, like Zacatecas, to where people are hyper vigilant about cartel activity, you're going to have to assume that 3 Americans operating as CIA are not going to raise any flags by being discovered by any other government authority that's out there conducting their own missions, unbeknownst to you. And if you have any doubts about what I mean, you can easily reference the FBI itself redacting documents that they're sending over to the Department of Justice right here in the United States over known criminal actors that are abusing children, right? So this whole ironclad, I don't take no for an answer garbage that you're going to listen to, and Armapedia and their high-level sources, it's all bullshit, dude. It's all bullshit. Total bullshit. And so in order to really get a grasp on what's going on, you just have to look at the way things are and the way people operate. Do or does the Mexican military, army, operate with normal checkpoints? Yes or no? Yes, they do. Are they a government authority that exceeds that of the Federal Intelligence Agency? In certain aspects, yes, they are. They're in charge of internal security at this point. So if they wanted to sit there and rip everything apart, right, and double check everybody's status as agents or whatever, and whether they're operating legally in the country, no matter what color they are, they have the capacity to do so. They have the access to all the relevant information to do so. And Scheinbaum, who actually qualifies as a 5 Eagle general, because the Secretary of National Defense qualifies as a 4 Eagle general, is sitting there decrying the actions that are going on. And maybe she's just doing that, and it's word salad to appease the Mexican public. She would have to be in the know on that, because the military would be in the know on that. Then in addition to that, you would have SEMAR, the Secretaría de la Marina. They would have the ability to be in the know on that, and they answer to an admiral, not a general, different agency. Then the Fiscalía General de la República, federal level prosecutor, state level prosecutor, another military general in charge of the state police that are preventative, which still exists, plus the Guardia Nacional, that's another general. There's so many people that could potentially find out about that going on, that the idea of the CIA in Mexico risking all that just to take down a drug lab, extremely improbable, man. Not going to happen. Not trust me, bro. Just use your brains. Not going to happen. You'll have all these people talking about El Mencho's death. Not one of them can take a picture of their body at the funeral. Not one of them can take a picture of a 50 caliber shell. Like they said, they fly into Jalisco or whatever, Guadalajara, drive over in a Jeep, have got several other reporters there, and not one person took a picture of a 50 caliber shell. Like they were talking about on their other stupid video. So getting back to the CIA guys dying in an accident. If there's 3 of them in a car traveling together, there would have to be a secondary vehicle making sure nothing happened to them. They're not going to be there alone, especially in a city and the state that's right next to the United States, where they would have the ability to put a secondary vehicle there. Plus, on top of that, you have Ciudad Juarez and the American Embassy there, where there are a lot of Americans working. The embassy in Ciudad Juarez is one of the largest American embassies in Mexico and handles most of the immigration traffic coming here to the United States from a Mexican perspective. And so there are several Americans working at the embassy there. I've been there myself. They're not going to risk everything just sticking a couple of agents in one car and then allowing those agents to go out and get killed or shot up, as is the case in the Department of Homeland Security agent or in Kiki Camarena, or be kidnapped. Then there's that whole thing too. So you got one car full of American agents risking being kidnapped in full-on cartel country. Are they kitted out? What are they armed with? You have all these people down there driving around in one vehicle with no backup. Yeah, that doesn't sound like that's probable. And then these people have the ability to be kidnapped in cartel country with no help. And you have to bear in mind that the cartel will straight up attack military bases and drop helicopters out of the sky. So they're not afraid of getting it on at all. Numerous stories with graphic proof of that all throughout the papers. But then you've got Luis Chaparro on some other podcast pretending like he's a Mexican reporter, and he's not. He's a Pretendexican. Pretends to work for Mexican news agencies, but does not. Lives comfortably in the United States. Has never had his fat in the fryer in Mexico, so to speak. Is going to sit there and read whatever their agenda is to you two, not proving anything. Talking about, well, they've got a picture of CIA agents in hokey uniforms. That it is true that journalists can get pictures and you wonder how they get it. I've had this happen myself. But what's not happening is someone like Luis Chaparro getting access to somebody at the embassy, and then these people are going to sit there and out all these different sources. You know, they've put people in prison here in the United States for sitting there putting stuff out or leaking information that people didn't want leaked. And you're going to tell me that the CIA wants its international operations in Mexico leaked? Doubtful. I totally doubt that, and you should too. And that these people are just going to give it up to some guy like Luis Chaparro? Also doubtful. I would look for real Mexican reporters that have a better idea of what's going on. You know, there was the entire ironclad thing about El Mencho's death. They're in Guadalajara. They can't even go to El Mencho's funeral, etc., etc., etc. They can't get pictures of all this. And I'm not beating a dead horse. I'm showing consistency and patterns with everything that they do. Their sources, their clandestine sources. I was entering data into my database yesterday on my operational open source intelligence operation or database that I'm doing. And I was going over Kat Schultz's videos, all of them that she has. And she goes from saying that she talks to her sources on Facebook, and then she goes to Substack, And then she goes to talking about how she uses Telegram and WhatsApp to communicate with her sources. I just want to bring something up because when people are talking about sources, virtually all of their videos are done with people that you can't ever identify that will openly identify themselves as I have. There's that. Then there's these people sit there and act like they've got clandestine sources that are involved in illegal stuff, like these illegal personnel would ever sit there and post anything, even meeting locations that are open to the government, as is the case with the mysterious skyscraper, what is it, 33, I forget the street name, in New York, that's known for the National Security Agency tracking and cloning all of the data that goes through there. And so these people are going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to use this to communicate with you because you got a pair of tatas and a belly button ring, or your name is Luis Chaparro or Yon Grillo. Like, people aren't monitoring all their SIG intel. It's just ridiculous. That's why these people don't ever name their sources, because they're all made up. They're all profiting off stuff. So the CIA stuff in Mexico, doubt it. Totally doubt it. Why would the CIA risk having not one, not two, but at least 3 different agents kidnapped to where that would expose the United States and all of their operations in Mexico or otherwise to world-class transnational terrorist organizations? They wouldn't do it, especially just to dismantle a drug hab. So that's kind of what I got to say about that. You know, one time we were coming back through Aguas Calientes, so I think we covered that even your own co-workers would know whether you were there or not from there, and other agencies. Plus, you get to know even the people that work for other agencies, so you would know who belongs and who doesn't. And you wouldn't be able to keep that quiet across that many different organizations. You can't do it. Plus, on top of that, the cartel already knows who is working for all these different organizations anyways, because they have people embedded. There's that. You know, stop me when I stop making sense, you know. And I invite anybody to come in my comments and say whatever they want. I will address you openly and answer any question that you have. You know why the government doesn't like people like me doing what I do? Because I go other places, or other people would go other places and find out what's really the truth. And the truth is that you're not operating in Mexico without a bunch of people, everybody that you work with, knowing exactly who the hell you are. And if you are someone that's from outside, if you are a foreigner, the bad guys are going to know immediately because they're so embedded. Which is another reason why people like the DEA and other people aren't out doing missions. And you get seen all the time. The people down on the corner right next to OXXO, Mexican version 7-Eleven, see you and know who they see coming and going. And people aren't always wearing their mask. And there are people at base that work for the other side, no matter what organization you work for. And then sitting there listening to Johnny Mitchell and Vince Vargas sit there and go on and on and on and bloviate like they have any operational experience in Mexico at all. It's just ridiculous. You know, I really want to see people start naming their sources. If you got so much insider intel, pony up and prove it, because I'm saying you don't, flat out. Plus, on top of that, a city-level municipal cop in Mexico, who are notoriously corrupt, has so much more intel and isn't afraid of putting his face out there. He'll tell you what's going on. He's already in danger anyways, just being a municipal cop. Nobody's ever talking to these people, and they'll talk. Everyone's always someone that's clandestine, anonymous sources. It's all bullshit, man. So that's what I've got to say. I want to beat everybody to the punch before Tommy G decides he gets some mysterious phone call from Ciudad Juarez from someone he's never met before that is going to sit there and pretend like they're cartel level firearms dealers or whatever, even though they're putting their business all on blast in broad daylight, like the Fiscalia wouldn't be in beating their door in immediately. Just, I don't know. That's what I've got. The CIA stuff, yeah. Things that didn't happen for $1,000, Alex. Cheers.